Welcome to Say Less Projects. We believe in the power of shared stories to inspire action and possibility and to bring hope to people who need it most. Through storytelling and purposeful action, we promote mental health awareness and support efforts to prevent suicide. You'll hear from a wide range of guests, runners, creators, leaders, and everyday people, sharing what they have lived, what they have learned, and what helped them keep going. The truth is, none of this is meant to be carried alone. If you feel stuck, overwhelmed, or tired, you are not alone. This is the art of doing something about it. Welcome back to Say Less Projects, the art of doing something about it. We're continuing the conversation with my friends who are going with me to the Speed Project. And today I have my good friend Taylor Prather here with me. Taylor, welcome to the episode.
What's good, man? It's good to be here. I feel like I said it the other day, but it feels like it's been like a long time coming. Like this should have happened a while ago. But now that it finally is and we're just a week out from the Speed Project, it's perfect timing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, let's start by just like talking about where you're from, kind of how you got to Dallas, a little bit of background on your story to set up for those that don't know you.
Yeah, man, I'll try to give you the TLDR. Otherwise, we're going to need episode 2, 3, 4, 5 and have to knock them all out tonight. But originally, I was born in the Texas Panhandle, and I'll get why I'm setting that up. Moved to New Mexico when I was little, but for all intended purposes, I call Oklahoma City home because that's really where I grew up and went to the University of Oklahoma. After that, I went out to LA, actually worked in the music business a little bit. And I know I hinted at this, but actually part of the route for the Speed Project, we're actually going to run through my old hood. So that'll be really dope. Just a little dose of nostalgia when we're, getting jittery and getting vibes. So that'll be good. But the reason I bring up being born in a small town in the Texas Panhandle is, people always ask me where you're from. I'm like, Oklahoma City. They're like, oh, there's always this like rivalry between Texas and Oklahoma and stuff. And I always say like, yo, I'm actually more Texas than you. And you're like, what do you mean? I was like, I was born in a town in the Texas Panhandle that like you've never even heard of. And they're like, man, what are you talking about? I bet I know what it is. And I'll tell them, I'm like, Borger, Texas. They're like, what is that? I'm like, 45 minutes north of Amarillo. They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I would say Borger. I've never even, I've been here my whole life and never heard of that. I don't think I've ever driven through it or anything.
Probably not. Probably don't need to.
So you grew up there, and then how did you come back to Dallas? Like what brought you back to the area?
That's a good question. So I was just figuring out life moves, right? And what was going to be best for me and my career and my family. My then at the time girlfriend, now wife, Peyton. She was still here in Dallas. I was out in LA. I was working at a music management startup and working with a few producers and whatnot. But I just felt like it was time to really figure out like how deep I wanted to go with that. If I had done enough, like what's next in my career. So Dallas is actually, a lot of people don't know, but it's actually a pretty big place in terms of like the PR and advertising industry. Probably just because it's like centrally located in the US. There's a lot of headquarters out this way. So I basically channeled all of my like marketing and PR experience from the music industry over to an agency here in Dallas to be closer to family, to figure out my life with my then girlfriend, who I knew at the time, like, we were going to be rocking together long term. So
and y'all met in Oklahoma?
Yeah, so we met in college, and we kept up with it throughout LA. Now, she liked coming out every weekend and visiting in LA, and I was like, man,
shout out to Payne.
Right.
You were in the music industry?
Yeah, so she enjoyed that part of it. I didn't enjoy driving and chauffeuring around LA every weekend, but it was dope to take her to the spots, do all the fun touristy things that I wouldn't have done out there by myself because, I'm like locked in an office or in a studio all day. So it actually got me out there, and it was cool to see, but we were like, just figuring out those next steps in life. And it just made sense to come here and like, not just like start our life together, but like to start our careers together too.
Yeah. And tell me more, cause I'm actually interested in this, cause me and you have actually never really talked about this. So when you were in LA, like what were you doing in the music industry?
Yeah. So you and I connected with my friend Austin that does like the music management and really does more of the sports marketing stuff. So he was the reason that I went out there. And so I'd work with like up and coming artists, and this isn't like the blog era days. So like, this is when like SoundCloud, this is before all of those curated Spotify playlists that get you hundreds and thousands, if not millions of views. So it was about making connections with all of like these digital publications that would pop off like, like Two Dope Boys and like all those different websites, like Dat Piff, the mixtape site.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I haven't heard that one in a minute.
Right. That was a deep pull.
Yeah. We're aging ourselves here.
I know, we got to stop. But it was all about developing relationships with all the people that run these sites and just like forming these connections so that when it was time to drop new music, like whether they liked it or not, you had a good relationship with them. So like they understood what it was and they would help you out. So it was really about doing like kind of this digital PR stuff. But then I would say the most major client I worked with, his name was Brian Kennedy. He has a recording studio out in North Hollywood, but he's a Grammy-winning songwriter and music producer. And the way that I kind of like get people to grasp the scale of like what this man does and how amazing he is he produced Rihanna's Disturbia, Chris Brown's Forever, has a lot of writing credits with Kelly Clarkson and a bunch of those early 2000s pop stars. And he's just continued his career throughout. But I connected with him through Austin and started working with him. But he's from Kansas City and just like a real down-to-earth, like Midwestern dude. Like you see him on the streets, he looks like just another dude. So that was honestly part of the reason why we connected and started working together. And I know for Say Less, you and I have been working on kind of like bringing in some partners, some sponsorships. And that's exactly what I did for him in his studio. So to be able to go back in that bag and pull it back out, I mentioned to you the other day, but like it's super fun for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
And were you having to go to like spots where like nightclubs or bars or like where underground music was playing, or is it like you were more finding them online?
It was more finding them online and then bringing them out to LA.
Because I'm trying to picture you like in a nightclub in Hollywood. That's awesome, man. So you're here, you fast forward, you're in Dallas with your now wife.
Right.
You transition out of music. Was that like a good transition, or like did something cause you to have to like get out of music, or was it more just I want to go try something else?
It felt more like the next evolution of my career professionally. It wasn't that like, you know, there was any bad blood or anything really went down. It was more about having something a little bit more concrete at that time. And so I was looking for something a little bit more stable, really is what it was. Like the music stuff, like it's up and down. And like, I mean, you watch all the shows back then, like How to Make It in America and stuff, like it's hard, you know, and it's just a grind. And I think that, you know, it was a little bit stressful at times, but like if I wouldn't have done that, I can say like without a doubt, I would not be here where I am today. I wouldn't even be sitting in this chair. So like, it's not something that I regret. I just felt like it was one step in a longer journey, and it was time to see like what that next step was.
Yeah. And if I want to become a rapper next year, you know, I got you in my pocket, because
still got it.
You never know. So we always, we fast forward now, we talk about how we use running as like a means to share our message with Say Less. And so when it comes to running, talk about how you got into running. What was that journey like, your health and wellness journey?
Yeah. So what's interesting during this transitional phase of my life and my journey from LA to Dallas was I was also kind of trying to get myself healthier again. In LA, I had like started to get active a little bit more. I found a routine. I was going to the gym. I was playing pickup ball again. I was running around the neighborhood. As soon as I got to Dallas, I poured everything I had into like just making sure I had a stable career. And that means putting a lot off to the side that honestly I look back on and I wouldn't have, if I did that again, I wouldn't have done it the same way. So during this transitional phase, you know, I was just pouring myself into work. I'd come home from work because like I was first one in the office, last one to leave, because like I was going to show them that I would belong and I wanted to climb the ladder. And so I just poured all of myself into that. But by doing that, I really neglected my health, to be honest. And I had always been a bigger dude. Like I played football in high school. I wasn't as active in college. And then I started getting active again. And it's not that like, you know, I think that there's kind of like this correlation between your weight and being healthy. And it wasn't really about that for me. It was that like I knew I was unhealthy at the weight that I was at. And so once I started going to the doctor more regularly, you know, I was told like, hey man, like you're not just like heavy on the scale. Like that's okay. You know, people have different body types, but like you are now pre-hypertension, which means blood pressure issues. So I got put on blood pressure medication at the age of like, what was I, like 23, 24? I'm like, that's too early to like be having these issues that could then develop into something later on. And honestly, even then it wasn't enough to get me active. I can't remember like the exact moment I was like, I got to do something about it. But Peyton has always been super active, very active in like the Dallas fitness scene, and her health and her activity is something that she's always prioritized and always found a way to do. So like when she would get up super early in the mornings and like go to workout classes before work, and I would be sleeping in, or in the afternoon she'd come home from work and then go to a workout class or a yoga session, and I'm just sitting on the couch watching TV. Honestly, that's what really started to have the effect. Was like, I need to figure out a way that I can be the best version of myself and like still be here later on in life, because I was going down a path that like was not good with all that. So like, honestly, that was like, it wasn't one singular moment. It was more of like a snowball effect. And so running to me was a really easy, fast, quick, efficient way to start getting fit. Now you have to do all the other things right too. Like I started eating better. I started doing more meal prep, all of those surround sound things that matter too. But with running to me, it was an efficiency thing. It's like, I don't have to do this for a long time, and I can make an excuse, or I can make time. I could make time for running without having an excuse to go against that. I don't have enough time. Just get outside for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. I don't have enough time. Just run to the end of the street and back. Just start building that healthy habit of activity and like really committing yourself to it. And, you know, consistency doesn't mean doing the same exact thing, the same exact time, the same exact day, every single day, right? It's about just making sure that if you miss a day, you get back on it. And that's what builds consistency. So I also went into it with that mindset. And as I started running more, the weight started shedding. I went from 260, and this is during the entire time, I went from 265 pounds pre-hypertension on blood pressure medication to 185 and getting taken off of it and being the healthiest I had ever been in my life because of running.
Wow. Started
going to workout classes with Peyton and like really enjoying those and crushing it. So like I had variety, so running wasn't getting monotonous. So then I was just able to keep building on that. And I remember running my first race with Peyton and her dad. It's called like the military miles thing. They do a lot of those kind of local races around here. And it was one of those up in Irving. And it was a 10K race. So I did that. And that's like what was like, all right, well, I just did a 10K. Like, what does a half marathon look like? And again, kind of like that same snowball effect of it just kept building on each other until like running in my life had like so much momentum that it wasn't just something I did. It started to kind of become a little bit of like who I am, which we'll probably touch on a little bit later and what that actually means. But yeah, that's how I got into running. And it was really just about getting my body healthy, getting my body right. And I had no idea I would be able to do that, or it would have the type of impact it had on my health. Like it really is still like astonishing to go back and look at pictures, just to consider where I was physically compared with where I'm at today and be like, damn, like I did that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's props to you, man. That's a huge shift. What was the weight again one more time? I
went from 265 to 185.
And what kind of time frame was that?
I dropped like 40 pounds within like 4 months. Like wow. It always goes really fast, and then it goes a little bit slower.
Yeah, then it gets harder. Yeah. That's awesome. And so I think what you just said is important, because this thing running changed your life. And so now you identify as a runner and you're excited about it. I think people, and I'm big on this, like we run, but we're not like, it's not like my identity. But I do think we all have to go through that phase. Like we start when something impacts your life like that, it is something you identify with, because it's doing so many positive things in your life. And then hopefully over time you kind of learn how to balance that. But so you made such a huge change in your life. You transform. And obviously I'm aware of this, but now then something happens, you get injured. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that, just to kind of give context to where we go next.
Yeah. So running was taking a snowball.
And what year was this?
This was...
Or roughly?
It was like on the tail end of COVID. So that would have been like 2020, 2021, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like this is actually like, I'm about to run the Chicago Marathon. Like I got in the lottery. I had started training for it. Was in the best shape of my life, like feeling really good about what my running trajectory was. Still didn't know what the heck I was doing in terms of actually properly training for a marathon, but I knew enough to to be able to do it right and to continue to get a little bit quicker, a little bit faster. So this is a couple half marathons, a couple marathons later, and this is like the February before the race. I'm out on the track and I just feel my back give out. So I talked about being an athlete in high school. I injured my back in high school doing hang cleans one year. I felt the same exact thing in 2020, whenever we're saying it happened. I felt the same exact thing happen out there on the track. So in terms of like why that moment, why when, like why it happened when it happened, it could have been something that like it was already a little bit weakened. Maybe I didn't rehab it properly back in high school and throughout college. And it was eventually going to give because I had been going so hard and doing so much that like without properly taking care of my back or even doing a follow-up just to make sure it was good, like it was going to happen again. So that same exact, and I remember running it was running intervals on the track. Shout out to Crystal Pollard and my people over at Tribe called Sprinters. They really helped me in my running journey and not even before the injury, but after as well. But it happened out there on the track and I felt my back give out. I'm like, even without going to the doctor, like I knew it because I felt it before, right? So I knew exactly what it was. I didn't know how severe it was though. And so I go to the doctor and he tells me, yeah, here's what's happening. Like, and not to get all scientific-y for all our people out there, but you basically have 3 different sections of your spine. You have like your cervical spine, your lumbar spine, and I can't even remember the last one, but it's down towards the bottom. But anyway, my lumbar spine, L5S1, which again, I can't remember what the S stands for, but it's the lowest possible level on your spine. So think of this as a vertebrae. Think of this as a vertebrae. In between those vertebrae, you have a disc. Your disc is what gives you your mobility. Your disc is what gives you your cushion on impact. Your disc is what helps keep everything healthy. The bones are what actually keeps it stable. So there's a tiny little thing that I call like the butterfly piece on the back of your spine. That piece connects to the piece above it. That was completely fractured. And it wasn't going to be able to be fixed. Like they couldn't just fix the fracture. It wouldn't just heal and be fine. This disc is normally supposed to be, I can't remember if it's millimeters or centimeters thick, but imagine it going from like, we're going food analogies with the spine now. So just walk with me on this. We're going from a burger patty to a pancake. It's supposed to look like a burger. It's supposed to be thick. There's supposed to be a lot of cushion, and it was pancake thin. So because of that, it just continued to wear down. It wore down so much that there was so much pressure on this that it broke. I had nerve impingement. I had this degenerated disc, and I had a fractured vertebrae. So from there, it's like, okay, what do we do about it? And first doctor I went to, he was like, yeah, I mean, we can fix it up, but like you're running too much and like you're not going to be able to run like this again. And so on the way home from that, this appointment was, Peyton went with me to my initial appointment. This was a follow-up after I had like an x-ray and MRI to confirm everything. I remember just calling Peyton on the phone and just like breaking down crying because I'm like, this man just told me I'm not going to run. And I was devastated. And one of the reasons why I think I was so devastated was what we talked about with identity, because running had become such a big part of my identity that like almost everything I did, how I acted, what I said, what I talked about, like life revolved around running, which to your point, we need balance. It's a good thing that I had it and I identified with it with where I was in life, but I over-indexed into it way too much. So we'll probably get back to that. But, you know, I took some time. One of the guys that I actually ran with at track, he's an oncologist. And I was just asking him, I was like, I know that like you've done like really complex surgeries and whatnot. Like, do you have anybody that you'd recommend for spinal surgery? And he did. And so I got a recommendation from this guy to go see this other doctor. And when I went and saw him, like, he completely understood what I was about, what I was trying to get back to from the jump. He's an athlete himself. He's treated multiple athletes at his practice. His partner doctor actually like completely fixed like Tiger Woods' back after like the third time, which was like they had to go back and fix his back, like somebody else's mistake. Yeah. It's like I knew I was in good hands. I knew I was with the right people. He fully understood what I was trying to do. He's like, yeah, man, we'll get you back to running. Now he's like, now here's what's going to happen to get you back there. which was going to be a 6-hour spinal surgery and then another 6 months, give or take, of rehab. But the one thing, and probably the smartest thing I've ever done, was during all that time, I was staying active. I was going to physical therapy in person twice a week, doing my exercises 5 days out of 7 a week. And a lot of it was like strength. So if I couldn't run, I was going to get on the Peloton and I was going to bike no less than 50 miles a week. I was going to do all of my PT exercises. I was going to do everything I could to see if I could get it to stabilize. And then if not, then like I knew I was going to have surgery. So by doing all of that, I think honestly, it really helped me recover quicker and get back to running even quicker, just because like I went into the surgery, like I got hurt, but somehow got fitter. I don't know how. Imagine that.
Yeah.
But because of that, like I was recovering like so quick afterwards that the doctor was like, hey, like, I know like you want to like jump ahead and like, honestly, with where you're at, you can, but like slow down. And even in that recovery phase, like I was like, okay, I need to slow down. But also when I was trying to figure out what to do before surgery and talking with Peyton about it, like that's when I also realized like I broke down again. And I was like, because we were scared about this surgery, like there's no guarantees. I could end up even being even more messed up. So like I broke down again. I was like, I need to get back to this, Peyton. Like you don't understand. And she fully supported me. But I also, for whatever reason in that exact moment, and I can remember the exact day, like where we were, all that stuff, I was also like, I need to slow down too. From like going from running and going hard to getting injured to like going hard after I got injured. I was like, okay, I need to just like slow down and re-examine things. So I think after that, I also got smarter, but that's what's given me the longevity afterwards and why I'm still running now is because I knew I needed to slow down. I knew I needed to have more in my life that I identified with outside of running.
So you're back running, and now this is right before the Chicago Marathon?
Yeah, so I had to defer because I so I had to defer to the following year.
Man, how close were you?
Yeah, so I was supposed to run it in like...
That was 2021.
Right, yeah, so I was supposed to run it in 2021. I ended up having my surgery in that August.
Okay.
So I deferred to the following year. So I was like, depending on where we're at, like hopefully I get to run it. Luckily, you know, Chicago is like really great with their marathon program and has a great like deferral option. So I was able to defer. So I get back to running in February, 6 months after spinal surgery. And I train crazy. as much as I could safely. And of course, throughout the like summer, and like amazingly had like no issues, no setbacks with my back, like nothing like that at all. And so I go and I run Chicago, and I go from what was a couple of years ago at this point. The marathon before that I ran was San Francisco. It was a 3:37. So I take it down to a 3:23 exactly. Like the clock hit 3:23.00 when I crossed the finish line.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
When you were told you can never run again and you're in this identity crisis, like, do you recall some things that like helped you through that process? Like what allowed you to also, like, what was motivating you? Maybe it was just pure, like, I got to get back, but like, what motivated you to, because I remember seeing videos of you in that machine, like running, like, because, you know, some people, they have these tragedies happen and then they just quit. But then there's people like you who get back up and keep going. What would you say helped you during that time?
I mean, one is like the support system I had around me. And even though I'm not entering my Oak Cliff Run Crew phase yet, just Peyton, and even Crystal and the folks at Tribe Called Sprinters, honestly, my physical therapist like played a big role in it too. And just like how supportive he was, but like that system that supported me. And like when I was negative, because I was negative a lot, like, let's be honest, like it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like if you're not, then
I mean, when my back's sore, I'm like, you don't want to be around me.
Right. 100%. So like, honestly, just like the people around me and just like being so supportive of whatever I decided was the right decision, even though it was going to be a hard decision and maybe even hard for like, I know it was stressful on Peyton to like go through, like, that's not easy. Like knowing your loved one's going to be under the knife for 6 hours. Right. And like what the outcome is going to be. So like having her support, having her understand how I was feeling and what I was going through was like huge to me. But the one thing honestly that kept me going, and I wouldn't even say it's a positive thing, is I didn't want to go back to where I was.
Hmm.
I didn't want to go back to being as big as I was. I didn't want to go back to being unhealthy again. I didn't want to lose everything that I had worked so hard to get, which that's a positive of it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like this negative emotion of fear that I was really driven by.
Yeah.
And so I was driven more by like running away from fear than I was running toward accomplishment.
I think I've heard other guys talk about this is like the thing that gets you going again. It might be anger, it might be fear, it might be one of these negative like connotations. But I mean, when you're in that moment, you got to take whatever you can get. Like if it's fear, if it's anger, whatever, and then you hopefully along the way learn how to adjust that into like a healthier mindset. So then you're 2022, we had no idea that me, you, and Alejo
Right.
and Haley
Yeah.
were all running the Chicago Marathon. And now all three of y'all are on the board with me for Say Less projects, which is just it's just stupid. But so we didn't know each other. I just remember Sam Vanderforst talking about this guy. He's like, man, my friend, they told him that he can never walk or run again or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? This guy's running the marathon with me? Then I got mad because you ran it faster than me. And then fast forward, you come to the running community that I'm a part of, which is Oak Cliff Run Crew. What made you make that decision? Because all along, well, you did have Crystal, and shout out to her and the Tribe Called Sprinters. But besides that, you were kind of running on your own. So what kind of made you decide to do that?
I think it's twofold, maybe even threefold. One, I think I was looking for like a sense of community and just like my running and my like athletic endeavors outside of Tribe, which like they were great. I still rock with them to this day, but like, you know, I know that like distance running communities were starting to like really become a thing at that time, whether born out of COVID or to create their own sense of community, whatever it may be. But I was kind of looking for that. And if I was going to spend so much time running, like why do it alone? Like, let me find some like-minded people that I can rock with to do it. And, you know, I think it was like Sam Vanderforst, like he had posted about it on Instagram or something, if I remember right. And so I was like, you know, whatever, like, why don't I just like hit him up, like see what's what and like go give it a shot. And then, you know, if I like it, cool. If not, like no harm done. But it was really just honestly like finding a sense of community, some like-minded people that were also like pursuing their own running endeavors and whatnot. So like we had have that like common bond and common ground. Cause like, I think it's really good to have friends outside of running and friends that you don't run with at all. But like, I didn't have that other side of the equation. And that's what really drew me to it. But I think like why I stayed there was not just because of the like-minded people, because we may be like-minded in some facets of our life, but I love how totally different everybody is at OCRC. But also, you know, even just me working in branding and marketing and advertising, I really like the mindset, what the crew stood for, the overall aesthetic, the branding, the approach, the tone and voice of like the social media and stuff. So like, it was kind of like this amalgamation of all these components coming together. That I was like, yeah, I can see myself like doing this with these people for like a long time.
That's awesome. I still remember the first Sunday you came and we were running. It was like we had just started our long run, and I'm a very like hard on my sleeve, transparent person. And I remember, I remember just dumping on you like, yeah, man, I just went through a divorce and blah blah. And then I remember telling Haley, like, I think I might have just overshared with this Taylor guy. I don't know if he's gonna come back. And then fast forward, here we are, 4 years later, and we're still rolling. So that's awesome, man. What would you say that recovery, like, and the sense of how you went through it, taught you about just life in general?
I mean, it's all, yeah. And I guess you could say what it taught or what it showed me. I think the two are probably interchangeable, but like what it really showed me was resilience and how resilient I could be. You know, probably just as much from like a mental aspect as from a physical aspect. You know, you talk about it, I talk about it, just like doing hard things. I think that there's so much more to life than doing hard things, but I think to have all of the good things, you got to have the hard things too. It's just that like, you can't always have it be hard. But knowing that when those times come, and there's really big challenges ahead, that like anything that I like have to go through now, I have like a point of reference and a point of comparison. And if I really take a second to think about it, like I think about like that whole journey from like just trying to get better pre-surgery for 6 months to surgery to trying to get back to running like post-surgery 6 months, like whatever I compare to that year, like is honestly going to pale in comparison. And that's not that each challenge, each obstacle doesn't have its own unique set of circumstances or anything like that. But it is just a really strong reminder that like sometimes I can tell myself like, you've gone through much worse than this. You've gone through much tougher than this. Or even if I feel like what I'm going through right now or will go through is tougher or worse or whatever, I'll know that I can do it anyway because I've done it already.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you obviously you're going through all that, and I would say this is where we come into the mental health side of things, because obviously your mental health got rocked during that season of your life, and that impacts. How would you say your journey is with mental health today?
We talked a little bit earlier about like things snowballing, and this is probably a bad instance of things snowballing because I don't think I really took the time to process how I was feeling mentally in a healthy way during that. Um, I don't think that I like gave myself like permission to like seek help, or I just thought that I didn't need help, or I just wanted to bottle it up inside. Whatever it was, I was making excuses, or I just wasn't doing it at all, not even thinking of excuses. And I think if I think about that piece of it, like, yeah, I went through something hard and like came back and like I felt really good about it, but did I probably like suffer from symptoms of depression back then? Um, Anxiety, just like general burnout from life, like probably. Did I ever try to actually acknowledge those and not just push them to the side? Honestly, no, not really. And maybe that's part of the reason why I was going so hard pre-surgery, was because I was just trying to avoid all of those feelings and things. And it may be something that even taking a step back from that, like that may have been a learned behavior. It may have just been something that I'd always done. And so I just continued to do it because that was my defense mechanism. That's what kept me safe, is by not feeling these things. If I didn't feel it, I didn't have to deal with it, right? So like that's totally fine. But I would say it's after those past few years when other things start to happen in life that you start to see the cracks in that and you start to see the flaws in that logic. And that brought me to like my journey with mental, well, didn't bring me to my journey with mental health. It's all a mental health journey, right? Like that's a life in a nutshell, is a mental health journey. But it brought me to doing something about it and to finally seeking the help that I needed. And, you know, probably way further down the road than it needed to be, but we had gone through several things. And this one actually did have like a specific moment in time, even though it was like a buildup of a lot of things. When I decided to start going to therapy, and I will talk about my therapy all the time. I will post it on social media. I will champion it. I will answer any question anybody wants to ask about it because I'm so proud of it, because it was one of the best decisions that I've made in my life. One of the hardest ones because, you know, I'm used to having this armor up and not talking and not sharing. So it was really hard, but it's also one of the best things that I think we as human beings can do. And even though I was so reluctant to do it at first, like things had just started piling up. Like our dog passed away, and I remember I went off on something, and Peyton was like, hey, like I know like you're really upset about things right now, but I think it would really help if you talk to somebody. And it was finally like that was the moment and the breaking point that I was like, I need to get help, and I'm not ashamed to admit that anymore. And it was kind of like the same thing in a weird parallel from like seeing Peyton be all active and then me being like, I need to be the best version of myself for her. It kind of was the same way for like therapy. I was like, I need to be the best version of myself, not just for her, for me too, but for her and for my people. So it's kind of weird how it works like that. But that's when I started actually like going to therapy regularly, talking through some things that maybe I never had talked about before, like my parents' divorce, and really trying to understand that anything that I had gone through in life, like getting bullied earlier when I was young and overweight and before high school, when it was okay to be big because I was a football player, going through a bad breakup in college freshman year, and honestly getting into some destructive behavior, like all of these things that I was never acknowledging never bringing up, never talking about, never sharing, and never, number one, like the most important thing, processing and doing it in the right way. Like I was able to do that, and I had a safe space to do that. And not only that, but it made my relationship stronger because I became more vulnerable and more open with people and more communicative. And yeah, I'm still working through a lot in that regard. And like, I'm never going to be perfect. And some days I may not want to share, and some days I'm not going to be perfect. I may not say the right thing the right way, but I know that I've made so much more progress from then until now.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, super proud of you for taking that step and doing that. And one of my goals with this podcast and Say Less in general is to normalize this conversation, because the reality is, like, although it may not be a back issue or the exact same thing, we all have traumas and things that we've been through. And I think that it should be, at this stage in society, culture, life, as humans and humanity, it should be very normal for us to sit here, especially as men, and to be able to talk about this openly. So super proud of you for leading the way in this subject. What do you feel like therapy and doing these things, what kind of protocols has it given you? Like, what are things that you might be able to help? Because there's people like that are going to be listening to this that are in that moment that you were in, where they have to make a decision right now. Either they're going to get help or they're just going to keep being destructive. So what have you seen change? What has helped you since going to therapy?
Yeah, and I do want to talk a little bit about like where I'm at now with that journey, because I'm going through a rough patch. But first, I want to answer your question because I think it's a really good one. And honestly, and I mentioned it earlier, I think the number one thing for me is that like being vulnerable is absolutely a strength. It is not a sign of weakness. And if you are willing to be vulnerable, and maybe it doesn't even get you into the door with your therapist yet, maybe it just gets you to tell your best friend how you're feeling, or just to let them know that like, hey, I'm going through something right now and I'm not really feeling okay. Just being vulnerable and being open with those around you that trust and care about you. But you have to be vulnerable and you have to trust them too. Like trust is a two-way street, man. So like just being open and being vulnerable about it is like a good step to start cracking that door open to taking an even bigger step. Don't wait until something happens or something is wrong. Like we do that a lot with our bodies and with physical therapy. Like we wait until something hurts instead of being proactive about it. Everything can be going great in your life. You can be in a really good headspace. Honestly, that's a really great time to go to therapy. Go talk about some stuff. Let them know how you're doing. Talk about everything that's going on. That's great. That's a good use of therapy too, because then you'll know that you still have this space that when things are good, you can talk. When something's bad, you know that you can go back to that space, go back to that person and talk. So I think it's just being vulnerable and making sure that like you don't have a reason. You don't need to have like a reason or something happen to go to therapy. Like we take care of our bodies. We go see a PT. Why wouldn't you do the same for your mind? And like, I know a lot of people that we connect with on social media and just in our circles are like athletes. And I know that like the whole taking care of your body thing, like that would really resonate with them. So I would just challenge people to think why you wouldn't want to take care of your mind in the same way, and that something doesn't always have to be wrong to like get treatment with your body. So it doesn't always have to be wrong to, get some help out with like your mind and what you're going through too.
Yeah, because we say like brick by brick is a phrase often used in this space of like whether it's brick by brick running miles or lifting weights. And I would say I agree with you. Like the same thing is like stacking bricks mentally so that you emotionally, spiritually can be able to comprehend and understand what's going on around you and awareness. Because a lot of this stuff you're talking about comes down to just having the awareness.
It is.
Hey, something is not right. Let me talk to somebody, figure this out. You mentioned it, but where would you say you're at now in your journey? Because you've gone up, down, high, low.
Yeah.
Like, where are you at right now?
I mean, I would definitely say from like a high level perspective, I'm doing better than I was by knowing I have these resources that I can tap into. I have tools that I can use to be more aware of how I'm feeling and to help me process that. Like you said, the awareness is just a huge piece, because until somebody like helps you figure out what's going on, like you may not even be aware of it. And that's actually where I was probably about 5 weeks ago when I went to therapy. I woke up a Friday morning and I felt like I had just run a 22-mile marathon pace workout on Thursday in like 90% humidity and 90-degree heat. I didn't though. My hamstring had been injured and I had cut back on volume, but I woke up Friday morning and I was absolutely exhausted. Like I didn't want to get out of bed. And I realized that I'd been struggling getting out of bed anyway a little bit, but like Friday it all came to a head. Now what was kind of like serendipitous with that is like it's also the day that I had therapy. I go every 2 weeks, every Friday. I got therapy tomorrow. So I went that Friday and I told her, I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I am absolutely exhausted. I've been resting and recovering from the marathon, so I know it's not overtraining. And then the more and more we just got to like talking about it, and I told her like what I'm going through. Like I'm having a hard time being motivated. I'm getting out of bed late, and it's not because I'm not getting good sleep. Like I'll look at my sleep scores and stuff and, you know, give or take what that data means. But I'm like, I'm doing everything I would normally do, but like, I'm just not feeling right. I'm feeling exhausted. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to go out and do anything. And she's like, and I'd run through like all of the physical stuff. And she's like, well, you know, go to your doctor, get a physical, get the blood work and stuff. Let's rule out anything physical. But she's like, honestly, you might be suffering from like some, you know, mild to moderate depression right now. And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, there's nothing wrong. Like, I'm doing fine. There's nothing wrong. But after we unpacked it a little bit, it seemed that like, you know, I had actually been carrying a lot. And one thing that actually is related to running and like some of the physiological stuff is after you've been on for such like a long period of time, and kind of in a state where your system is in high alert and you're always going, like, I was in an entire training block for summer, was supposed to run Berlin, got COVID, couldn't run Berlin, extended the training block throughout winter, ran the Houston Marathon in January. So every single day every single week, I'm running 50 to 60 miles a week. I'm working 50 to 60 hours weeks, 50 to 60 hour weeks. Like I'm in a constant state of like arousal with maybe only like 2 to 3 hours per day to like, you know, really like descend. But one thing that I'm kind of making connections for now and like why I may be going through some of this depression is, and Michael Phelps went through the same, that like when you're in this high state of arousal and alert all the time and you're always stressing your system, stressing your body, it can do two things. One, it can mask a lot of things going on, because you don't feel some of those other things. And the second thing that can happen is that your body and your mind don't know what it's like when everything slows down again, because you don't remember it and you don't understand what it's like. So you don't have a home for your mind and your body to go back into when everything slows down again. And so you can kind of actually get these depressive symptoms, which is like your mind and your body like readjusting back to this crazy state of mind. And sometimes it may require different things to get out of it. It may require medication or whatever, but I had been feeling just really low energy. And I wouldn't say like feeling sad just as much as I was like feeling down. And so I've been feeling this for about, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks now. Went to the doctor. Everything is fine physically, still really healthy. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to be physically healthy, but we're still working on the mental health aspect. Some days are better than others. Last week, I had a really great week. I even told Peyton last Tuesday, I was like, I'm feeling really good today. Like I feel more like myself than I have in the past 5 or 6 weeks. Today, I'm actually not feeling that great. And I told Peyton before we came here, that like, I don't want to go do this, but I knew that I needed to come do this. Because awesome. I know it's important. And the one thing that she told me when I came to do this was like, I know you've had a long day and maybe you don't want to do it, but there might be somebody that needs to hear what you have to say. And I was like, okay, fine. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should go do this. So I'm taking it one day at a time. I've had a stretch of some really good days. I'm actually going to go see a psychiatrist and look into, see if medication is actually right to help me get back on this journey. I have no shame in admitting that or saying that. And, you know, if it's what my therapist recommends and can help me get on the right track, then I'm going to do that. But it's just, and I want to like go on like a segue or a tangent here, but I think one thing I would say is like, everything may look okay on the outside, but you may not know what's going on with somebody on the inside. So like, just always keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good place to end it for today, but I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for being vulnerable and transparent, openly and publicly, knowing that this is just going to go out onto the interwebs,
Yeah.
but also being someone that's close to you, in close proximity. We're in community, and you're absolutely right. Like, I'm thankful that you've been transparent even with me and just things you've said in passing, because we run together and we're part of this running community, and you race, and you're absolutely right. Like, that's why people say check on your strong friends, because you may look like everything's fine on the
Right.
outside, but then in the inside, you're just in this battle. And that's our neighbor. That's our partner. That could
Right.
be anybody. And so thank you for being a champion to not just say it, but actually do it and go to therapy and represent and show up. Thank you for showing up today, even though you had a rough day. And so just wanted you to know, man, I'm proud of you and appreciate what you represent for our community. And I'm excited to keep going with you.
I appreciate that. I thank you for letting me share my story. And again, like, for everybody else out there, like, that's why I want to be so open about this. That's why we do it, because if you don't have that piece of it, then, like, how are you truly going to build a community of people and to know that, like, each other's got your back? So appreciate it, man.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode. If this resonated with you, the art of doing something about it, I would love for you to subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram at Say Less Projects. Also, we're a nonprofit. You can visit and learn more about us at saylessprojects.com and help us to continue to inspire action and possibility. And most of all, keep going.